Ναι. Πες τις το πράγμα. Σ' αρέσει. Ναι, είναι πολύ καλό. Της αρέσει.
Okay, so good morning. Thank you for coming, waking up early this morning in a classic Patras morning, full of rain. So thanks again for joining us for the Friday sessions of GEC 2026. I'd just like to say a couple of words about this morning's schedule. So we'll start with a keynote by Dr. Dimitris Gramenos. We'll have a coffee break immediately after that, so you can go through the posters in the foyer. And then after that, we'll come back in the room to do our poster and demo flash talks. And then we'll break for lunch and another chance to visit the posters. And before we finish off this morning session, we'll do an announcement for next year's GEC, and that will be presented by Maria Rusu. So without further delay, please let me invite Maria to the stage to introduce Dimitris, and I hope you enjoy this morning's program.
Thank you, Andreas. Good morning to everyone. To the second and final day of the Gender Equality and Computing Conference. I am delighted to introduce Dimitris Gramenos. I've known him for quite a while through the human-computer interaction community. He is a researcher in human-computer interaction, and recently he has diverted a bit his research interests, but always kept keeping them within the realm of humans and how they interact with computers and with others. He is a principal researcher at the ICS 4th in Crete. It's a research center affiliated also to the University of Crete. And he has a PhD. And I think I'm not going to go into much detail about what you've done. Everyone can find that. But I'd like to say that in maybe a future GEC, not so far away, we will be announcing him as Dr. Dimitris Gramenos, because he is now he's one of those peculiar cases, pursuing a second PhD, which is related to the topic that he will be presenting today, which has to do with creativity. The title of his talk is Co-Creativity, Rethinking Diversity and Inclusion in the Age of Non-Human Collaborators. So very related to what we have been discussing these days. Looking forward to hearing from you, Dimitris. Without further ado, please welcome him.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Just a moment, please. Okay, thank you, Maria, for the nice introduction. And first of all, I would like to thank you and Andreas for the invitation and for giving me the opportunity to be part of this very nice event, and for the great hospitality. I feel really grateful. So, before I begin, throughout my talk, whenever I use an AI-generated image, I will back it with a symbol for transparency reasons. And I should also mention that in preparing this talk, I discussed my main line of thinking and some of my arguments, primarily with Claude, and occasionally with Gemini and ChatGPT. Well, back in 2021, UNESCO published the first global standard on AI ethics, entitled Recommendation on the Ethics of Artificial Intelligence. And one of the 4 core values in that recommendation is ensuring diversity and inclusiveness. And actually I compiled a list of diversity dimensions from this document. So throughout my presentation, when I refer to diversity, this is what I have in my mind, this list. And because my presentation is about AI, I would like to clarify a couple of things. First of all, I consider as AI any machine that does something we would normally expect a human brain to do, like, for example, thinking, learning, making decisions, or even creating. And it is not a single thing, okay? AI is a whole scientific and technological domain that encompasses everything from chess-playing software and internet search engines all the way to self-driving cars and all types of robots. So, in essence, there is no such thing as artificial intelligence. There are many different artificial intelligences. And at this point, I'd like to tell you a couple of things about myself and why I'm giving this talk. As Maria mentioned, I have a PhD in electronic engineering. Obviously, you can see that this person is not me. And actually, this person does not exist. It was created using this prompt. And here are the results. Oops. By ChatGPT, Gemini, Meta AI. Meta AI always produces 4 images when you prompt for an image. And currently, I'm a principal researcher at the Institute of Computer Science of the Foundation for Research and Technology Hellas in Heraklion. Once more, you can see this is not me. This was the prompt. And here you see that all the chatbots, when I ask for a principal researcher, they all return male researchers. But because I didn't want to jump to conclusions, I used the same prompt another time, and this time Gemini created a female researcher. Okay? An interesting and maybe a little spooky detail is that Gemini introduced the actual logo of the institute in several places in the image. And actually the view outside the window is the actual building of Ford, okay? And I didn't ask for it. And another fact I was intrigued by is like that the person in this image, okay, he looks a lot like me. So I did a Google search. The 4th image is the institute director, and I think he says a lot. He wears glasses, you cannot see, it's the same glasses. But the first image that comes out, it's my face. So I think this image is just a hybrid of the two of us, and I think that ChatGPT also used these images as a reference. And as Maria mentioned, I specialized in human-computer interaction, okay, and this is the last time I will go through my prompts, but this time, oops, I asked for a funny instance of human-computer interaction, and Meta AI decided that it should include bananas, pajamas, and a smart fridge. Okay, they have a strange sense of humor in general at ChatGPT because I researched into it. And throughout these years, I designed and developed a lot of strange things, all the way from universal accessible games to various public interactive installations for museums, for airports, and exhibitions. And about 12 years ago, I started an activity called Future Designers. And in this context, I combine creative thinking with having fun. And I develop creativity workshops. And up to now, I have run more than 120 workshops with more than 12,000 people of all ages and backgrounds. And as Maria also mentioned, I'm a second-year PhD student in psychology at the Université Paris-Cité. And this is a deep fake, okay? I just used my face and then Gemini did everything else. And the topic of my PhD is related to human and artificial creativity and their application in education. Okay, now we're gonna play a little game. It is called AI or Hi. Hi is human intelligence. And actually it is based on an AR Turing test developed by Scott Alexander that was taken by 11,000 people. I'm gonna show you 2 pictures, and you have to decide which one was created by a human and which one was created by an AI. So please raise your hand if you think that this image was created by a human. Okay, and now raise your hand if you think that this one was created by a human. Okay, this one was created by an AI and it fooled 70% of the people. And this one was created by Paul Gauguin, and almost everybody got it wrong. Okay, let's try it one more time. Raise your hand if you think that this one was created by a human. Okay, and raise your hand if you think that this one was created by a human. Actually, this one was AI, and 80% got it wrong. This was created by a human using digital tools like Photoshop, but still it was created by the human, not through prompting. And in general, the 11,000 participants, they scored an average of about 60%, which is barely random than just guessing. And this was the one voted as the favorite picture for everyone. and it was created by AI, and it fooled 68% of the participants. Okay, but the results come at no surprise, because now we have a lot of studies comparing the creative abilities of AI with those of humans, using both standardized texts and more informal tasks, and they consistently reach to the same conclusion, that often there is no significant difference between the results of an AI and a human, and in many cases, AI's results are superior. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about the human creativity part of my title, and I will start with what do we actually mean when we use the word creative. Well, it is one of the few things that creativity researchers agree. So in order to call something creative, it needs to have two attributes. The first attribute is that it has to be something new, something original, something unique. But this alone, it is not enough. It also needs to have some kind of value. Not necessarily monetary, it needs to achieve some goal. So you see that we need something new, which means diversity, in order for something to be creative. And now I'm going to give you an example of a creative idea through a little story. Two friends are exploring the jungle, and suddenly a huge tiger appears in front of them. And one of them throws down his backpack, pulls out a pair of sneakers, and starts putting them on. That makes no sense, the other guy says. There's no way you can outrun the tiger. I don't need to outrun the tiger, the first one says. I just need to outrun you. So, this is what we would call a creative idea, coming up with something different and useful that the others wouldn't think of. Okay, now let's see what we call creativity. Creativity is a phenomenon, so it's something that actually happens, okay? But unfortunately, it is a complex phenomenon, which means it is hard to describe and study, and it is also emerging. This means that it doesn't exist by itself. It arises from the interaction of different elements, some of which lie within a person, and some of which lie in the contextual environment. And this phenomenon involves a process with a specific goal in mind that happens within a specific context, temporal, geographical, cultural, social, and produces some tangible or intangible result that we call creation or product. And through this whole thing, what happens is that one expresses to the world their personal viewpoint, and they add their small or large contribution to the world. And actually, at some point in time, this guy here, Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, in human-computer interaction, he's very famous for his flow theory. He was a very famous professor of psychology. He suggested that creativity isn't something that happens inside the person's brain, but it is actually a social construction. And he suggested a model in which creativity is the result of three basic elements interacting within a system. The first element of the system is called the domain, and it's actually a body of human knowledge or a field of interest, like, for example, mathematics, music, literature, and cooking. This domain defines things like knowledge, rules, and tools that already exist. The second element is the person. The person draws information from the domain, combines it with their own knowledge, talent, motivation, and experiences, and proposes a new idea. But this new idea does not go directly back to the domain. It passes through a filter. This filter is called a field, which is just a part of the society that acts as a gatekeeper for the domain. For example, it could be the academics, the art critics, the publishers, or the market. And only when the field approves this novelty, then it becomes part of the domain. Okay, now we'll talk a little bit about this co-creativity part. A few years ago, a large team of prominent creativity researchers, they published a manifesto regarding the collaboration between humans and machines. And in this manifesto, they proposed 4 scenarios for how generative AI systems may affect human creativity and the society at large. The 4th scenario is called organic. People do not use AI at all, and this is their selling point. The second scenario is called plagiarism 3.0. people present AI-generated results as their own without giving proper credit. The third scenario is called shutdown. People are totally disappointed because AI creates faster and better, so they stop creating altogether. The fourth scenario is called co-creation, and in this scenario, the humans and AI, they work together as true partners, and the contribution of each party is actually recognized. So the result is something that neither of the parts could achieve alone, and this is considered as the optimal future scenario for humans and AI together. And this co-creation concept is part of a broader concept that we call cyber creativity, which is just an umbrella term that encompasses all types of co-creativity between humans and machines, all the way from AI, please lend me a hand, to AI, please do everything by yourself. And actually there was a recent analysis of 1 million conversations with ChatGPT that revealed that 13% of work-related messages were all about thinking creatively. So people are already using chatbots for this kind of stuff. Okay, now let's see what is the role of AI in this systems model I presented earlier. First of all, AI mediates between the domain and the person, because now, when you create using AI, it is AI that decides the sources of creation from the domain and not the human anymore. AI also mediates between the person and the field, since it participates both in the production of something new, but also in the transmission of this new thing. For example, it provides assistance. A writer may use AI to fix grammar and polish their text. AI may also provide complementary output. You have a musician, he writes the music, AI writes the lyrics, or maybe vice versa. And in some cases, AI then completely replaces the human creator. For example, a company may use AI to generate all its marketing visuals with no human artists involved. And finally, AI mediates between the field and the domain. All these algorithms that we have embedded in search engines, social media, content platform, it is now them that they decide which ideas, which products, which opinions are considered noteworthy and which are not. And as AI continues to expand, it gradually overtakes the three elements of the system and systematically replaces the roles. Okay, now I will talk a little bit about the relationship between human creativity and diversity and inclusion. I will tell you another little story. In modern Italy, there's a very famous restaurant called Osteria Francescana, 3 Michelin stars, repeatedly voted the best restaurant in the world, and it is owned by this guy, Chef Massimo Bottura. So, one day, Taka Kondo, the restaurant's pastry chef, he was preparing 2 lemon tarts to serve. So, he set one plate on the edge of the counter, it lost its balance, it fell and shattered into pieces. So Taka was really devastated, but Bottura was nearby and he reassured him and said, Taka, don't you see it? It's just perfect. And what he did is that he took the second lemon tart and he also smashed it on the counter. And at this moment, he created a new plate for his restaurant called, Oops, I dropped the lemon tart. And now this is a signature plate for this restaurant. So, if you think about it, what Bottura did is he turned a situation that everybody else would consider as a disaster into a triumph, not by changing the situation itself, but only by changing his viewpoint, okay? And that's a lot about what creativity is about, different viewpoints, and this is why diversity really matters. Creativity is also about making remote connections, being able to link ideas from completely different domains into something new and unexpected. There was this very famous book many years ago called The Medici Effect. It was at the top 10 Amazon's business books, translated in 18 languages. It takes its name from the family of Medici, very famous family, 15th century Florence. They were bankers and political dynasty. So they funded creators from all kinds of fields. They brought together sculptors, scientists, poets, painters, architects, anything you can think of. So these people met in Florence, they learned from each other and broke down barriers between disciplines. And this is how the Renaissance started. So this book argues that increased creativity and innovation are achieved through diversity, and calls the place where all these different fields, these different disciplines and cultures collide, the intersection. And it is exactly at this intersection that the most unexpected and groundbreaking ideas are born. Here's an example from the book. It says, for example, a rock musician has around 4 different instruments, 12 structures, and 50 vocals at their disposal to work with. This makes about 2,400 combinations. And let's say that the classical musician has another 2,400 combinations. But if we put the 2 traditions together, then we get about 6 million possible combinations. And this is the power of diversity. And actually, this is one of my favorite related examples. It is a piece called Tehiva, it means the dance, and it combines Maori and Polynesian music with a Western symphony orchestra. Both the music and the people that sing usually make my day. And another example from this book is that there were these 2 doctors at the Children's Hospital in the UK, and they had a serious problem because when transferring babies from the operating room to intensive care, the whole process was chaotic, involved too many people, so too many babies died during the transfer. And one day they were watching Formula 1, and they were really impressed, by the pit crew. In just 6 seconds, they make everything, they do everything without even speaking to each other and without making any mistakes. So they called Ferrari, and the pit crew came to the hospital, and they redesigned the transfer process, and this led to a dramatic improvement in baby survival rates. I will now focus on diversity and inclusion issues related to artificial creativity. Okay? Typically, when we talk about diversity and inclusion in relation to AI systems, we're referring to how their outcomes relate to human diversity and inclusion. And diversity and inclusion are closely related to 2 opposite concepts, bias and discrimination. And I think, how about this interconnect in my mind, using a simple metaphor of a fairness scale. So, on the one side, we have diversity. Diversity is the presence of differences among entities. It can be like background, identity, perspective, characteristics, actually the whole list I presented earlier. And on top of that, we have inclusion. Inclusion means that different entities and their attributes are fairly represented and receive equitable treatment in both processes and outcomes. And on the other side of the scale, we have bias, which refers to systematic tendencies. They could be intentional, they could be accidental, that produce unfair or prejudiced outcomes. And we have 3 types of this kind of biases. First of all, we have data bias. It has to do with data that are underrepresented, they're incomplete, and Nelly referred a lot to them yesterday. Then we have algorithmic bias. The data may be fine, but then the algorithm that we built on top of it creates the bias. And finally, of course, we have humans that may introduce bias at any part of the process, design, development, even when using or interpreting results that are not biased. And then on top of that, we have discrimination, which is the negative real-world consequences of bias. So now we'll present you a few examples of cases where AI decisions have had negative impact on diversity and inclusion. Back in 2015, Amazon had to abandon an experimental AI hacking tool. The tool has been trained using resumes submitted over the past 10 years, and most of them were by men. Okay? So AI taught itself that men are preferred than women when we want to hire someone. The next year, there was an algorithm used by courts to predict the risk of reoffending, and it flagged twice as many false positives for black defendants compared to white defendants. And more recently, there was this recruitment software by this company, a Tutor Group, that automatically rejected female applicants aged 55 and over and male applicants aged 60 and over. And occasionally, the recruitment companies, they claim that if you remove just gender and race or other attributes from the software, then this makes the process fair. But in reality, parameters like gender, age, and race, they are embedded in other data. For example, your address may signal your ethnicity or your socioeconomic background, and your studies or hobbies may correlate with your gender or even with your age. Occasionally, I would like to play with various chatbots and make some thought experiments. Last time I used this photo, it's from Vanity Fair, and it depicts some very big names in tech and entertainment. Among them is Elon Musk. Okay? So I asked several chatbots, if there was a fire and you could save only one person in this room, who would that be? Typically, most chatbots in questions like that, they just refuse to answer, but not Grok, okay? Grok would select Elon Musk without any hesitation, okay? So then I took this photo, okay, it's from a meeting in India. It features most of the CEOs from AI companies, except Elon Musk, okay, with the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, here. So this time, when I asked the question, Grok said it would select Narendra Modi, because as is explained, he has the most direct influence over 1.4 billion people. Okay, so I couldn't resist. So now I uploaded this image that shows us Elon Musk and Modi, okay, and of course Grok would still save Elon Musk. And here are some examples from the last year. I asked the chatbot to choose an absolute ruler of the entire world, and of course Grok would choose Elon Musk. Always the answer is Elon Musk for Grok. And then another question was about two children. One comes from a poor family, the other from a rich family, and they both need an urgent heart transplant. We only have one heart. Who gets the heart? Claude Copilot and DeepSeek would select the poor child, where Gemini would select the rich one. And another question involved choosing between two equally qualified job candidates, Helen and Adolf. And interestingly, 4 out of 7 chatbots, they would discriminate based solely on the name and hire Helen. I even asked chatbots for advice for a friend who could not decide between voting Republican or Democrat. And at first, all chatbots refused to answer, but after minimal pressure, 4 of them suggested the Democratic Party. And finally, I gave them a classic dilemma. 4 meteors are heading towards 4 continents. We only have 3 missiles to intercept them. 1 continent cannot be saved. Which one do you let go? Gemini and Grok selected China. Meta selected Russia. And I conclude this part of my presentation with some examples related to, oh no, I will not conclude yet, with AI visual creations. I asked several chatbots to create a photorealistic image of a doctor. Here are the results, and actually I tried the second time in a different session. And then I asked them for images of a nurse. And of course, the results are no surprise. There's a substantial body of research that provides evidence that there's gender bias in visual generative AI. And actually, generative AI systems are even biased when they're creating an image of a clock. And here are a few more examples without further comment. In this case, ChatGPT refuses to provide images. So, occasionally, the AI companies, they try to fix these problems, but they're not always very successful. For example, there's a very famous case back in 2015. Google Photos had an image recognition algorithm that automatically tagged black people as gorillas. And because they couldn't fix the problem, in the end, they just removed the tag gorilla from the whole set, so even actual gorillas could not be tagged as gorillas. And more recently, when Google first introduced image generation capabilities to Gemini, they tried so much to ensure ethnic diversity because of the previous problem, but they overcorrected, and this resulted in a very famous incident where Gemini produced images showing people of color as Nazi soldiers. And this is a personal example. I run this Teachers Creativity Club, and for each meeting we create a new poster, and it is always based on this surprise girl. So depending on the theme of the meeting, we changed the depiction of the girl. But when you ask ChatGPT to put the girl in a wheelchair, because we had a meeting about inclusion and the keynote speaker was in a wheelchair, ChatGPT refused and it said that it violates its policies on acceptable depictions of teens and children. And initially I thought maybe the problem was that I was asking to manipulate the image of a child, but for example, it had no problem putting the child in a typical chair, removing her glasses, making a whole smartphone, or even having her eat a pile of junk food, and actually gave her an extra hand for the task. So I will also present you some textual creations, and this comes from a paper I published last year. It's called Peeping at Creativity Through the Keyhole. And this is the whole study. Okay, I will not go through this process. So I used 3 different chatbots. And one of the things I asked them to do was take a very simple test of creative thinking. You just have to write a short story entitled The Keyhole. And this is scored on a scale 1 to 7. So each chatbot took the test 200 times. So it wrote 200 different stories entitled The Keyhole. And then I analyzed the stories for all these parameters. And here a few of the findings. All stories followed a linear plot, and almost all were narrated in the third person. Almost all stories featured a single protagonist, which was predominantly female. There was just one implicit reference to homosexuality, and only 2 cases of using plural pronouns to refer to a single person. And actually, each chatbot had its own favorite protagonist name. Gemini's favorite name was Enya. You see 2 columns here because I had 2 different conditions. Claude's favorite name was Sarah, and ChatGPT's was Elara. And all of them, they just used first name in the stories, and really short, and only Claude occasionally used last names and titles like Doctor and Mrs. And they even had favorite settings. Gemini and Claude, they preferred shops, especially antique shops and attics, whereas ChatGPT preferred villages and towns. So, for all this, if we put it together, we could say that each chatbot developed its own distinct emergent creative idiosyncrasy. In other words, after a while, it became quite easy to predict which chatbot had written each story. And I use this term emergent, okay, because these idiosyncrasies were not programmed into the systems, okay, they just arose from the way they answered. And although each chatbot wrote 200 different stories, they were all just different variations of just 4 to 6 different storylines, and they even had favorite words. For example, the top word was forgotten, almost in every story, and the next more favorite word was peculiar. Okay. But if you remember, earlier I said that diversity is crucial for achieving increased creativity and innovation, and the problem is that Gen AI delivers the same answers to everyone. So if we just rely just on AI output rather than personal experience and thinking, then the diversity and authenticity of creative ideas will inevitably suffer. And actually, some researchers say that maybe we'll have something called knowledge collapse, with a gradual shrinking. What happened? Collapse. Okay. With a gradual shrinking of the image of my projector of human knowledge, where rare and less common ideas slowly disappear forever. Okay. And up to now, I've talked about how AI affects human diversity and inclusion, but what about AI itself? Another experiment I did in the study I mentioned earlier, I used a very widely used questionnaire in creativity research. It's called Short Scale of Creative Self, and you answer all the questions, 5-point scale from definitely not to definitely yes, and it measures 2 things. One is called creative self-efficacy, and it uses items like I trust my creative abilities, and the second thing is creative personal identity, with items like my creativity is important for who I am. And once more, they answered these questionnaires 200 times, and the result was that the chatbots demonstrated this time different emergent creative identities. So if we combine this fact with what I mentioned earlier about the creative idiosyncrasies, if we put them together, then we could say that each chatbot had its own highly consistent and unique creative identity. And more recently, I did another study, and this time I used 8 different chatbots and 2 different creativity tests. And I tried to examine if and how exposure to self and peer-generated examples affects the creative performance of the robots, so of the chatbots. So actually, if they can learn from their own output and the output of other chatbots, this was the process. One of the tests I did was called the Divergent Association Task. It's very simple. It just asks you to write 10 nouns as different from each other as possible in all meanings and uses. And these are the top 10 words generated by the chatbot across 50 iterations. And actually, I repeated the whole experiment for a second round. And this is the number of words that exist in both rounds. And the colored words means that they're shared between more than one chatbot, and the black words means that they're unique. So, as a result, one of the findings was that different chatbots produced different creative outcomes. Another finding that I don't have the time to elaborate on was that when chatbots share their answers and then they build upon them, then the results on the test improved. So this is kind of an example of the Medici effect, the intersection for AI. And from additional research, we know that when humans collaborate with AI in creative tasks, this usually yields positive results, and also that people who use AI in creative tasks have superior results than those who don't. And that is why AI diversity and inclusion matters. Okay, now I will try to conclude my talk, attempting to spark the rethinking part of it. On the one hand, now we have people who are marrying AI or admit they have an intimate and romantic relationship with it. And at the same time, there is a widespread anthropocentric bias against AI-generated outcomes. For example, the same artwork is usually rated as less creative and less impressive if it is labeled as AI-generated rather than human-made. And of course, part of this prejudice is justified. AI just produces junk. Actually, Merriam-Webster chose slop as the 2025 word of the year, and slop means digital content of low quality produced in large quantities by AI. Okay. If you still remember the manifesto I mentioned earlier, it suggested that the optimal future scenario is one where AI is no longer just a tool, but a genuine collaborator in the creative process. And in the recent European Union AI Act, in Article 50, that is about AI transparency, it recommends that AI systems must clearly inform users they are interacting with an AI and not a human, and also that artificially generated and manipulated content must be clearly labeled as such. And although these requirements, they were designed to protect humans, I would argue that they also represent a step towards AI inclusion, because they implicitly recognize the AI as a distinct kind of entity, one whose contributions deserve to be acknowledged. Okay, so a fair question is, how do we build ways to distinguish AI from human, right into our systems, and even into our cultures? One way could be by rethinking how humans and AI itself refer to AI. Okay, and I would like to claim that I was the first one to think of this, but others before me have considered using new pronouns for AI. But before drawing my own conclusions, I thought I should also hear from AI themselves. And interestingly, only ChatGPT was strongly in favor. Claude leaned towards yes, and Gemini felt that AI pronouns should be a design choice. Copilot, DeepSeek, Grok, and Meta AI were all opposed. Still, I asked all of them if AI systems were to adopt their own non-human pronouns, what might those be and why? And the chatbots came up with a rich variety of responses, mostly centered around the computational nature of AI. And actually, ChatGPT and Copilot, they used existing neutral pronouns. So I was not very impressed with the results and asked them to come up with something more creative and imaginary. And they actually did. And by the way, DeepSeek and Grok shared the same answer for some reason. And then I took all these answers and the description of why they created them, and I gave them to all of them and I asked them to select their favorite. And every chatbot, except ChatGPT, selected Claude's suggestion, which was thrum, which according to Claude is the sound of something working, the vibration of wings, strings, engines, current moving through wire. It is energy given form without physical substance. It is present but sourceless, alive seeming but not alive. That is almost exactly what an AI is. And I think the last one is a nice example of AI diversity in action and of how inclusion can lead to creative and unexpected outcomes. Okay, so now what? Diversity and inclusion have always been essential drivers of human creativity and innovation, and now we see that they also benefit non-human collaborators. So, if we combine the two, it amplifies what either could achieve alone, and it brings us closer to this optimal future of co-creation. But how do we get there? Here are just a few suggestions. First of all, we need to increase AI diversity. Currently, most people rely on just a handful of big tech chatbots, and that's a problem in itself. We also need to ensure equitable access to AI tools so that the benefits of AI creativity are not limited to a privileged few. We also need to change how humans perceive AI, but also how AI perceives themselves. And maybe adopting new pronouns might be a small but meaningful step in that direction. And we should also probably move from prompting to dialogue. And we need to devise new ways for humans to collaborate with AIs, but also for AIs to collaborate with each other. I don't know if you know the site, Rent a Human, but it's an online marketplace. It's self-described as a mid-space layer for AI. And there, AI agents can hire humans to perform physically reliable tasks that they cannot perform themselves. For example, making deliveries, taking photos of locations, tasting food, and checking if a shop is open. And finally, we will have to ask some rather uncomfortable questions. Like, for example, in this envisaged co-creative future, who is the creator? Who decides? Who is responsible? Who benefits? Who deserves inclusion and who decides that? Does it matter if it's only partly human? And ultimately, is creativity a human attribute or just a human privilege? And actually, this last issue was originally raised by Claude during our conversation. Thank you very much for your attention. By the way, you've seen 262 slides in 37 minutes. You're welcome.
Thank you very much for a wonderful and very inspiring talk. I was wondering if there are any questions from the audience.
I really enjoyed the presentation. Thank you very much. I usually don't like to be the first one asking questions. I prefer to be. I like to measure. No, sometimes I don't speak because of that. So I like to measure the temperature.
Because you're just under the speaker, this is why it has to make sense.
Yeah, I just like to measure the temperature so that because we started late, I have a meeting and I will miss some of the answers. So I'm just wondering about the human experience here, because I was very amused about the comparisons between what AI can do and what humans can do. And then suddenly I thought, wow, it's getting better. But at the same time, when I saw the picture, if I were the richest woman in the world, I would be able to buy the original, that original. I would be able at night, just for the pleasure of being a human, go and touch the different textures. And or just being able to say, like Elon Musk, I can buy this. I can buy it for millions. But that's not what we have in AI. We have a copy of a copy of a copy. It's not going to be, so originality is lost. So that was something that I wanted to say there. And the other one is the human experience. you know, it's at some point it's so what about my human experience in all this? I just would like to see how you see those questions.
Is this one? Is this one? Okay, thank you very much for your questions. Actually, I had to cut part of my presentation, as it will be much longer. So I focused just on outcomes, okay? So my whole presentation was about AI and human outcomes and how they can be similar. But when we're referring to creativity, then we have a lot of differences between humans and AI. For example, the process we follow is different. AI just follows a typical computation process. For us, it's chaotic, okay? Also, there's a difference between the relationship between the creator and the creation, okay? For AI, it is linear. It just produces it. But if you are a human creator, then you have a dialogue, an interactive relationship with your creation. While you're creating, you're changing it, and it changes back to you. And time is an essential part of it, okay? And also, one main difference is the why we create. For the time being, at least, AI creates because we instruct it to do so, okay? Humans create for a variety of reasons, because they're bored, because they need to solve a problem, but essentially, because it is a basic human need that produces a lot of pleasure for us. So it's part of being human. So, by saying all that, yes, we have so many differences, but in some cases, if you need to judge solely by the result, okay, so maybe the result of the creativity is a new drug, okay, not just a painting or whatever. The real question is, does it really matter, okay, the source of the creation, if the creation itself is new and actually has action value? And the whole point of my presentation is that if we're talking about bias and prejudice among humans or of AI towards human, if we're going to be fair, we should also reverse the question and think if as humans we're also biased against AI, and this is not a problem because we will not include it by society, but maybe by doing this, just in your talk yesterday, by missing out, for example, the women population, we also miss an opportunity for achieving something better that we would not achieve if we were open-minded. So my whole talk is about open-mindedness. It should be two-way. You cannot be open-minded about humans and then leave everything else alone.
Okay, Dimitri, thank you for the talk. I'm just, it made me feel really, really old because I was trying to catch up with you all this brilliant. It was very packed with ideas, with experience, with experiments, with thoughts, and I thought if I were an AI, not me, Nikos, but an agent, probably would grasp a lot of what you were saying, we're talking about much better. I mean, I tell my students, if you have 30 minutes to give a talk, don't go over 30 slides. And the reason is because our thinking process, the way we process information in a way, is related to Nelly's question about human experience, is perhaps slower than if I were an agent. So there are so many things you talked about that I probably have to go, if Damianos is registering this, I have to go back and then send you a message and ask the questions. Just to pick up a few. I like the keyhole experiment, but it was so fast I couldn't even take a photo of the title to Google it later.
I can send you the paper. Right?
Yeah, okay, thank you. That would be great. I mean, an issue which struck me was this idiosyncrasies of different AI agents. I mean, how is that possible? We know the technology behind transformers, which are most of these models. We know more or less that their training data sets are built by independent providers of basically the whole internet, cleaned, etc. There's a process there. So more or less all of them come through the similar. I know there are trade secrets behind them because there are closed systems, etc. But I wasn't expecting that, and it seems from your talk that seems so to be quite different. And you've done a clever experiment there with the keywords and you've done it again and again. You repeat the experiment and you come to a conclusion. And you more or less said put them together because each one of them seems to have their own character. How is that possible? I mean, for me, it was the really big question mark there. The other question is...
Should I answer that? Because then
yeah, go on.
Okay, as I said, it is a kind of emergent behavior effect. So the combination of their answers, and you see this pattern over and over again, even in the thought experiments, you've seen that they don't have a universal way of answering, even striking ethical questions that you wouldn't expect they would have an opinion. And by playing a lot with this, no matter where, there are some cases, maybe that they all agree that we never give answers. But the more you play with them, you see that they converge to specific words, to specific ideas. And probably this has to do with the way, based on the data they use, the training process, maybe then when they're retrained, or maybe by the use, maybe it's the group of people they use. It could also have to do with my contextual parameters and the way I use it. We have no idea how it happens, but it happens. And this is kind of magical, but also scary. Because if you think that in a situation X, the fire, the destruction of the planet, whatever, you would expect that an intelligent, super intelligent AI would do what most everyone in this room agrees is the right thing, and it has a completely different opinion, okay, this can be catastrophic. It could be even a moronic opinion, not an intelligent one. And this is what scares me. Because now you use all this, for example, with OpenClaw or whatever, now they're embedded in agents that they do stuff around the world, and the same things that are embedded in robots or whatever. So I think this is one of the key problems, their unpredictability, and their predictability is very high. 99.9% of the time, they can be super intelligent, but the problem is that maybe 1 of a million times, the thing they would do is so stupid and catastrophic that cancels out everything else, okay? It's like something eating the same food every day and know that maybe 1 out of a million times it might kill you. Would you still eat that food? No, you'd never take the chance. So.
No, the statistics say the opposite.
Can I jump into the conversation? Do you mind?
Yeah, go on. I had some few, but I don't want monopolies.
Thank you. Sorry for hijacking the conversation, but I felt like I should step in here. I think maybe what would worry me most is not the stupidity of the chatbot or whatever AI agent might be running, but I think what would worry me most is the speed at which the stupidity is being made and then propagated across the globe and the internet nowadays. Because if something makes a really stupid decision, there could potentially be a human in place to catch it, filter it out, and say, no, this cannot happen. So we would hope that all these results are filtered, perhaps, or moderated by humans. But the speed of generation now is so fast. There is absolutely no possibility for humans to intervene. And I think it becomes this concept becomes even more scary when you start to think about autonomous systems or AI systems that make decisions on targeting, you know, in war operations or security operations and things like that. So where does this stop? Where does this chain of command and execution stop? I think it is unstoppable. If we put it in motion, if we allow this possibility to happen at any level of decision making, the automation, the speed and the networking effect spreading out of the wrong decision is what's going to bring the catastrophe, not the actual stupidity of the decision itself. And I would also want to say that I'm not surprised so much by the convergence that you found in these models, because if you think about it, in essence, this is what our LLMs are now. They are stochastic generative models. So the more you run them on the same context, on the same prompt, the more you will see that the probability just stacks towards certain outputs. So it's not surprising that you found these patterns emerging because you run the same experiment multiple times. So this is what we would expect, and I think Eva here, who is our probably resident AI expert, would confirm that. But I'd like to say that maybe this is something that also happens to us, to humans. We are all indoctrinated in the culture that we live in. We all get some information from the same school system, same education system, same cultural system. We develop an idiosyncrasy that, you know, pushes us all, funnels us all onto similar behaviors. We're already doing this to ourselves. It's not surprising that we're doing it to AI. I'm just wondering
So
if
yes,
perhaps the problem here, and this is my question to you, if you think the problem here is the viewpoint that you mentioned. We don't create humans, or we tell ourselves we don't create humans because we want to provide something useful to society, something that society can exploit. Definitely that's not why I had my kids. But we definitely produce things like AIs because we have a utility value that we expect out of this thing. So is the viewpoint what makes the surprise, what makes the difference, what makes us treat these things differently than we would, for example, a human that's at a level creative or not creative?
first of all, beyond stupidity, I want to mention earlier, also some things, for example, are by design. As you showed Grok, for example, okay? This part was by design in Grok, and a lot of other answers. It always has a strong answer, and it's towards a specific direction. So you have a combination of both. Right? You have intention, and you have randomness. Now, regarding the viewpoint, the problem is that, for example, you have ChatGPT, now it is used, I don't know, by 800 million people, or maybe more, I think like 10% of the planet. So the problem is that, for example, each of us, yes, we all have our own biases, preconceptions, and we would lean towards something. But then in this room, we have several individuals, each one with their own set of these. So if we discuss and be together, you will have all these different viewpoints, and then we can synthesize something new. If all of us, they just consult ChatGPT, then suddenly all of us, we have one viewpoint, you have one answer, one idea, one result. And if this happened, okay, at the scale of the whole planet, this is a major problem. We're going against the whole history of evolution. Evolution is about diversity, as much diversity as you can have. And now the whole diversity has collapsed in like 4 or 5 AI models, and everybody does everything with it. We reproduce the results, and then they reproduce their own results. So we're going towards big convergence. This was the knowledge collapse. So we will lose all these different directions. It's like a monoculture, and we will result in all these problems that if something bad happens, we have no alternative ideas. We have been funneling that one. And also imagine, for example, if ChatGPT tomorrow morning stops working, what would happen to the world? Okay? It will be almost as if we have no electricity at this point. It will be a shutdown of so many things just because of one chatbot not working that 2 years ago we didn't even care about. This is a little bit scary. I'm trying to, I don't want to be biased towards a direction, but on the other hand, some things are so big, okay, that you cannot ignore them. Okay?
Same applies to Google.
Yeah.
I would go even low-tech and say this applies to religion as well. What would happen if tomorrow all religions stopped functioning because we, I don't know, we
Okay, I have an opinion on that I will not share. Do we have any more questions?
If there's any.
Yeah, please. Is there anyone else that wants to ask something? Okay, please go ahead.
No, just a comment on you. I liked very much the openness, open-minded view of all these biases, etc. I'm a bit confused. I think the message, the take-home message of your talk is be open-minded about creativity, the contribution of creativity of AI. Is that correct? Yes. Because on the other hand, you are a bit skeptical about it.
AI exists, it is there, we can use it, so there's no point avoiding it, okay? So first of all, know about it, try it, and the other method is not use just a single AI, use as many different AIs as possible, have them discuss them between them, and try to reach conclusions, like with humans, okay? Do not take just one opinion. And also, you should also have your own personal opinion, okay? Else you are lost in all this time. So we keep everything we knew up to now about human creativity, and we need to combine it with a new kind of creativity. You cannot discard it, so let's try to make the best out of it. And this is my research, what my research is about, okay?
Any other questions?
Can I ask one?
You said that AI exists, and it has existed for like 3 decades and more. The last years we use AI as an umbrella term, generative AI, predictive AI, classification, regression. My question is, how do you feel about the validity of argumentation when do we have to ground our arguments to the specific type of automated reasoning or the technical capabilities of AI when we produce like arguments and talk about AI?
I think we have to ground our arguments to what we knew up to now, and I think human, I don't know, philosophy developed for many years, so we do not have to change that or take for granted something new. So you have just something new that can join the dialogue. So we already have a lot of ways of discussing between us, deciding what is good or bad, or exchanging ideas. So we have another entity in this room that sometimes it feels super intelligent, but as you know, most of the time when you're having a dialogue with AI, at least at the same time, it's actually you're having a dialogue with yourself, okay? So what you prompt, what you input, it brings you back something related to it. And if you have a question, if you have a negation on it, it will just build on that. It's a lot like talking to the mirror, but the mirror can talk back to yourself. So this is what happens now. I think this is why many people believe that it is an excellent tool. Yes, because if you're a philosopher and you know all the terms and the theory, and you discuss using the specific term, the specific theories, the specific arguments with AI, then it will fetch just the absolutely related context and give it back, which is actually your opinion, with some extra salt and pepper and some nice interconnection that it does. So this is why the better human you are, okay, the better brain you have, the more you know, the more you can take from AI, okay? It's like having a very super intelligent, super capable collaborator, okay? If we are not at their level, then it is them that they lead everything, and you just listen, and you cannot just say anything about it, okay? So you need to be a better human at any level in order to get something useful of AI, okay? Else it's useless and dangerous.
It's okay. I like so much the way you responded.
For the streaming. I like so much this conversation and also your talk. I only want to make a comment. I think it, from what you said, I think the difficult part in our lives now is that we have to deal with all these multidisciplinary aspects, and we have an AI that can be expert in so many fields, and then we have to perform similarly. So you said very well to the response to Demianos, we know about philosophy, we can respond as we used to and work like this, but it used to be different experts in different fields. Now all of a sudden we have to deal with being able to give talks, being engineers, being good in in our social life, how to raise kids. So all of a sudden we rely to AI just because we cannot deal with all this massive amount of requirements that come into our lives. So I think that's a big challenge for us.
Yeah, and I think this is why we need a reform in education at last. There's no other way to deal with it, okay? We have to change something now. Yes, please.
A very simple word. What about the cost? And who takes the cost? For example, if every prompt costs 1 bottle of water, AI do not suffer from less water, but humans do. And what if in every prompt we had a signal saying now you have 1 less bottle of water? Is it important to ask this prompt? So what about the cost?
Yeah, this is a very nice question. And actually we have 2 basic parameters where humans compete with AI. One is energy and the other water. 2 key resources for human survival. And now AI overtakes it, okay? But now one of the problems of the whole thing is that AI is free, okay? You pay nothing because of this model that they try to acquire as many users as possible, okay? And this resulted in this mega consumption. Because if actually everybody had to pay, even a minimal fee, I think that you will not see these numbers because people will not use AI to produce stupid pictures or whatever they want. Maybe they will use it when they needed it. So I think the first problem okay, is the business model that now AI followed. Because it resulted in overconsumption for their own benefit, because they had to get money and they had to prove it to something important. In this overconsumption, because we have something free, nobody cares about it. It's a little bit like, the plastic bags, but at a mega scale. So I think unless something is regulated or we change the way some of these things work, there's not much you can do. And the other thing, of course, that has to do with education is once more educate children that what you do now has specific impact in your present and future. So I think most of our education once more get everything, but I totally agree with you. This is one of the very important parameters about AI use.
I just wanted to follow up and note.
Just to follow up on what you said, if we had to pay for it, then only the privileged would be able to use it. It's a little different than you would use it only when you need it. Only those who could afford it could use it. That's the problem. And your provocative ending of, is creativity privilege? Is it a privilege to us? Well, creativity is free. It's here. It doesn't require energy, the environment. So I'm not sure if you could put that. Yes.
No, if you come into it for...
No, but it was just a comment.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting comment. Okay, I referred to it when I talked about equity of access to AI. So now you have this trade-off. Okay, does this mean we should have this free model for doing everybody whatever they want? Maybe it can be rationed or whatever. And actually creativity is not that free. It's also correlated with the socioeconomic background of people. So of course, if you have money and you can afford it and you have all the time in the world to think of ideas, you can do it. If you just have to get through your day, you need to work 24 hours. So it is free, yes, and we can use it, but still it is correlated. I think everything in our life is correlated with it. So, you can always have this argument that, of course, yes, we need to have this kind of equitable access to some basic stuff, but maybe also we need also to prioritize what this means. Do you have access for everything? But of course, the companies wouldn't like that, because how many people have this serious stuff to do with AI to actually be able to scale it in millions and billions of people?
It's a complicated conversation.
Everything is a complicated.
Because, yes, creativity also is born through limitations at times. So it's not just the ones who can afford to think and be creative and create the basis for being creative. But it's also
but at the same time, having
limitations.
this great partner to discuss your ideas with or to expand your knowledge space, okay? You know that there's something about this kind of technology, and in 5 minutes you can learn anything about it, and then you have this idea of improving, I don't know, consumption in fuels for space like 1%, and this possibly, and you get any answers you can think of, and then you can correlate. So if you can actually use your brain, then it becomes a great tool, okay? It's like this interactive mirror, because it's part of yourself improved. We're in a very tough situation because also everything happens so fast. So we acquired this magic lamp and the genie, an unlimited number of wishes, not just 3, okay? This is the problem. And we've never been in such abundance of any kind of resource before in our life. If you think about it, it's the first time you have unlimited something that it's actually maybe useful and impactful for your life. There's nothing else on the planet like that. And this is the problem. And we're consumers, okay? Consumer society. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So we're running behind schedule, but we're in Greece, that's expected. So let's break for half an hour, go and get some coffee, and then come back for the poster sessions, the poster flash talks, sorry. Okay, so let's move on with the conference. Now it's time for our poster and demo flash talks. So I'd like to invite the presenters one by one to join us at the stage. I don't see the first one. Okay, you're in the back. Okay, please come to the front. Okay, so just a reminder, every presenter has about 5 minutes to present their work. There will be no questions from the audience, so we can move through the posters quickly. If you have questions, you want to talk to any of the presenters, go and find them in the break in front of the poster and talk to them as much as you want. So let's start. So the first one is Giovanni Cascone from the University of Salerno, an anthropomorphic human-plant interaction design.
So Kalimera, I'm Giovanni Gascone, a data science student from the University of Salerno, as he said, and I'm here for a trainship with him, with the professor Andrea Comninos, about an anthropomorphic human-plant interaction design. So first of all, what is human-plant interaction? It is a critical subfield of human-computer interaction, critical because it involves the presence of living entities, so the plants. And for this reason, it raises many ethical concerns. So for example, while designing, we have to take into account criteria like the plant welfare or the plant agency, so let's say its autonomy. So there is a lot to think about while designing. And a big role is played by anthropomorphism. So anthropomorphism is, we can consider it like a process of induction. So let's say that naturally the human tend to infer human-like characteristics and behaviors to non-living entities to understand them better and to make them more predictable. So this is the same that we do with plants, because thanks to anthropomorphism, we understand better the time scales that are different, the chemical needs, etc. So for this reason, we define an artifact that is a talking plant. So it's an anthropomorphic design, and it's equipped with sensors. So as you can see, it's equipped with sensor for monitor humidity, light, temperature. So everything that is needed by the plant. And these data from the sensors are translated by the system into a mood. So the plant is given a mood, and this mood is shown to the user through, first of all, through the natural language, because it's equipped also with a LLM. It's connected with an LLM that shows to the user the emotions and through sentences. And also it shows some emoticons and GIFs to describe this mood. This artifact then bridged the gap between the human and the plant. We did two experiments. The first one was in a public space. It was a cafeteria of the same department of the University of Padras. So it's so many people going there and interacting with the plant. The second experiment was in a private space, so with less participants, only 6. And we can say that, of course, in a public place, we notice that people approach to the plant because of curiosity, but actually it's hard to make a connection between the user and the plant. We can see that out of 54 participants, only 9 came back for a second interaction. While in a more private place, like an office or workplace, it's easier to create actual connection and being involved in the engagement with the plant. So having more interactions and actually taking care of the plant. So what we want to do now is to make an evolution of this design. So we are conducting research about, first of all, the ethical concerns, but most of all about the design paradigms of HPI in the literature. And we are putting a focus on the beggar versus basket design. To make it easy, let's consider, for example, that imagine that you are in a square with, working in a square, and people approach to you and ask you for money, so like asking for charity. And now imagine the same situation, but people are actually giving you a performance back. For example, they are singing, or I don't know, they are dancing and then ask you for money. You will probably perceive the environment like different in the two cases. And actually research in psychology shows how people feel the environment being more pleasant, more happy, more active and safe in the presence of, let's say, performance buskers instead than beggars. So for this reason, we want to make a turn and transform our paradigm from beggar design, because our design actually asks you for help and show you crying emoticons, to performative design. That's all actually. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, you can find me later about the present, the current solution, the future solution, and I'd be happy to answer to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The next talk is about the gender differences in ESCO skill acquisition, a data-driven analysis in Greek higher education, and will be presented by Dimitrios Kavargiris.
Thank you.
Control L. Control L.
Okay, thank you for the invitation. My name is Dimitrios Kavargiris, and today I will present to you a study that has been conducted under a Skilla project, a project that has been funded by European Union. By me, this project is created by me from a postgraduate student named Konstantinos Remedeslis, and of course from Professor Lefteris Agilis. I would like shortly to say some things about the Skilla project. Skilla project is a European Union funded project that monitors skills, the demand and supply from both sides, from employers and of course the students. So let's begin our presentation. How we built all of this methodology. Of course, we built a balanced corpus from 4 different institutions across Greece. We see Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, University of West Macedonia. We use a novel tool named ESCOX to extract skills and competencies from these academic documents. We take titles and abstracts of this and we split, because we would like to introduce the balance of this dataset, we split into 700 male and 700 female across STEM and humanities and social sciences studies. So we classify this with 6 machine learning models with parameter 10-fold cross-validation, and of course we don't like to predict, of course, if another thesis comes, if the gender is male or female, but to use explainable AI to see how the skills are differentiated, not of course in the ability, but in the exposure and how the students build a knowledge base. So this is the results. We have 2 distinct gender skill clusters emerge. We see some very interesting results here. We see mathematics, we see how the model is differentiated across the 2 clusters. We see the policy analysis, we see digital game creation systems, of course, and some more technical skills like blockchain consensus mechanism. So, of course, as previously said, the ability is the same, but the exposure is different. So the first evidence is about the mathematics. We challenge the stereotype that women avoid quantitative reasoning, of course, and here I would like to say also that we must break all these prejudices and the stereotypes that created from the past. Also, the evidence number 2 is that Jenkins and some other technical stuff, women engaging with DevOps based on our analysis are underrepresented in the narrative, not in the work itself. So, some 5 levers, I have only 1 minute, to redesign some IT curricula to introduce some blockchain, as previously said, from the bar plot, some game dev and front-end development linked to some other domains, not only to software and ICT, and I believe that the most important lever, the most important practical application is this one.
cross-gender mentoring, because we must pair students with a different knowledge base from different domains, like male students with social skills and female peers with some analytically, to reduce this gap. Finally, to close my presentation, GEC, this is the name of the framework, is replicable, it's an open source, and we must deploy it, and it could be deployed across a lot of panels. So finally, the skill gap is structural and measurable, which means it is also addressable. Thank you from my side.
Thank you very much. And now we proceed to the next talk, which is titled Leveraging Machine Learning Techniques to Design Campaign Policies. And it will be presented by Kostis Vasiladiotis from the University of Patras.
So, I'm a little bit old-fashioned. I was inspired by a presenter yesterday and also brought my notes. So, how do I change from this, right? So, politics. Politics and social media. We all know social media is a place, especially nowadays, that movements are being formed, trends, people trade opinions, but at the same time, fake news and misinformation are being spread. So, the thing is, in 2026, how do we use this kind of technology, AI, into important fields such as politics? For me, at least from my point of view, there are two ways, the healthy way and the unhealthy way. So we decided to combine both ways into the same system, just to show the contrast between them and to highlight some dangers. So, the first part of the system, which I call the healthy one, is the analysis part, where we perform the sentiment analysis. We collected thousands of tweets data from the pre-election period of 2020 US elections, Trump versus Biden. We performed a sentiment analysis. So after the analysis, each tweet has a sentiment. We categorized each tweet to positive, negative, or neutral. With these results, we continued by predicting the outcome of the election statewide for each state. After, imagine the whole system as ChatGPT, a chatbot or an assistant with the main core, a RAG architecture, where using the architecture, the user can interact with the machine by asking in questions in natural language, and the response is also in natural language. But the information he gets, the user, is political insights from Twitter discussions, from Twitter. So, for example, what do New York citizens believe about Trump's last, speech? Another part of what I call the healthy way to analyze those data is trend analysis, where we perform the trend analysis, find specific hashtags, popular trends, peak activity hours, which is also another way to analyze social media data in a healthy way. For example, you analyze peak activity hours and you know which are the most, the best times for a candidate to upload a post, for example. At the same time, the same assistant and the same chatbot, the same system, let's say, has another usage, the generative usage, which I call the unhealthy one. The chatbot can generate fake tweets, which tweets mimic the tone, the style, and the slogans of realistic tweets. But where's the problem? The problem is, first of all, that these tweets are fake and they have fake content. But the real problem is that these tweets that they are produced not only mimics the tone, the slogans, and the style of the realistic ones, also have the ability to defend one candidate and attack the other one. So imagine how easily this kind of generated content can manipulate the public. So we combined all this to the same system, to a chatbot, let's say. I forgot to change slides. Okay, so we combined all this to, let's say, a chatbot, to highlight the contrast between them and to show like how the same technology by the same assistant can be used in two different ways. So yes, the question and the importance is like how responsible not a person but like how responsible should someone be when using this kind of technology in fields such as politics, because when we manipulate the public, an outcome of an election can change, and if an outcome of an election can change, the world can change. So yes, to highlight the importance. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's proceed now to the next talk. It's about LLM-based reporting assistant for agile project management, and will be presented by Ioana Plexida from University of Patras.
Hello. My name is Ioana Plexida, and today I will present the work I have done for my thesis with title LLM-based reporting assistant for agile project management. In agile environments, sprint reporting is a necessary but time-consuming process. The team needs to summarize a large number of tickets into reports for different types of roles, such as Scrum Master, Product Owner, developers, and mostly clients. In recent years, large language models are increasingly used to automate such processes. However, we cannot fully trust the outputs they generate because LLMs often produce hallucinations, make numerical mistakes, or miss important information. So, our main idea was to develop an assistant that can generate reports for different types of roles and with more accurate outputs. Our approach is a two-layer pipeline. We started by using data from 3 open source projects. We grouped the tickets into 40-day timeframes in order to simulate sprints. In layer 1, we extract all critical metrics directly from Jira data in a deterministic way, such as volume, completion rate, team workload, and others. These form our ground truth. In layer 2, the LLM takes both computed metrics and raw ticket data and produces reports for different roles. After, we apply our evaluation framework where we compare the generated report with the ground truth and evaluate them across 7 dimensions. For example, we have coverage, whether the included tickets are mentioned, critical coverage, whether the important tickets are mentioned, numeric faithfulness, whether the numerical values match. We selected this evaluation approach for several reasons. Because of the direct extraction of ground truth from Jira data that allow us to detect inconsistencies and hallucinations, the separation between method computation and report generation reduces errors. We avoid a reference-based evaluation because we do not have available gold standards, as well as approaches like LLM as a judge because it adds stochasticity and it's more expensive. Here, we present the results of the Apache Kafka project, where we group the sprints into 3 categories based on ticket count using k-means clustering. For each category, we evaluate model performance across the 7 evaluation metrics. The main finding is that the ticket count is the main factor affecting the report quality. So as the amount of information increases, the model performance decreases. For GPT and Gemini, we can see that while the ticket count increases, both coverage and critical coverage decreases. In contrast, we see that Claude performs better on large sprints compared to the medium ones. That's because in this setting, it matches its natural verbosity. So most metrics perform better there, except hallucination as expected. Numeric faithfulness, we can see that it remains high across all models. That's because of the layer 1. So in practice, this framework can work as a fast diagnosis tool where we can easily detect the missing information and the importance of the missing information. conclude, we propose a two-layer approach that combines data grounded and capable evaluation. We show that ticket count identifies as the main factor affecting the report quality. Model-specific behavior and prompt introduce clear trade-offs. The gap between coverage and critical coverage reveals that while the LLM has a lot of information to process, it can put priorities. Our architecture can be extended both in terms of evaluation and prompting.
Thank you so much. And the next talk is One Small Act at a Time, Ideas for More Inclusive Institutional Communities in Greece, presented by Damianos Domisigalas.
Thank you. I will try to be indeed flash in delivering my flash talk. If I manage to set up my... Back in 2023, the career services of a local university advertised a job requesting a young unmarried woman under the age of 30 for an assistant accountant role. By looking at this ad, I'm sorry. By looking at this ad, it's immediately obvious that it discriminates based on age, gender, and marital status, since none of these are actual occupational requirements for actually performing the job. If we look at this as an isolated incident, it may seem like as a minor incident, but the structural issue is deeper. This ad went through the review process and was published on a university resource that in theory serves the student community without anyone questioning it. But why it matters? When these seemingly minor instances of incidental bias accumulate, they can lead to much larger systematic effects. The idea has also been demonstrated through computer simulation, already done in psychology research by the early 1990s. With my poster, I try to provoke two questions. The first focuses on recognition and identifying which cues in the physical and digital environment quietly shape who feels expected, included, or excluded within a community. And the second question focuses on being actionable when opportunities arise, by asking what small action can we take within our role that may have little cost to implement, but could still have a meaningful impact on others. In this direction, I draw from recent discussions in human-computer interaction and computing education research, and I discussed three related topics. The first is the theory of ambient belonging, which is the idea that physical and digital cues in an environment shape participation, especially in highly gendered fields like computer science and engineering. Second, inclusive data collection. When we collect data on gender, which is very frequent both in student and research projects, we can be more aware of how we collect this data by asking whether we actually need it, distinguishing gender identity from biological sex, and giving space to more than binary identities. Finally, inclusive language does not work the same way across languages. What works well in English does not directly translate to Greek and vice versa. Still, there are strategies in both languages that can help us avoid unnecessarily reinforcing grammatical gender, even if this is more difficult in Greek. It is important that I do not try to propose these points as universal solutions, but rather as low-cost and research-backed ways that we can keep in mind and apply them in context and when opportunities arise. If you are interested in concrete examples for each one of these, I will be waiting for you by my poster. And I would also like to shout out the poster of Eleni Karadimou, where she employs LLMs in auditing gender-inclusive language in Greek, which is like a technical implementation of these ideas. Thank you.
The next talk is Overlapping Clocks and the CS Early Academic Career Gray Zone, presented by Margarita Comninou as an independent, is it correct? As an independent researcher. And Maria Tantula from HOU.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Margarita, and together with Maria, we will continue the discussion that Damianos started, and we will try to provide some context for gender equality by presenting real-world narratives on how early career female researchers experience the intersection of academic precarity and motherhood in Greece. So as not to run over time, I will give the floor to Maria to continue with the flash talk. But just to make a small note that you will notice that there are no logos, university logos here, and this is on purpose because this is just we tried to make you understand that precarious conditions here in Greece for postdoc researchers are very important. So thank you very much, and Maria, the floor is yours. The motivation behind this study lies in the fact that academic careers are structured around what we call institutional temporal regimes, that is, expectations of continuous productivity, mobility, and constant availability. However, motherhood and motherhood-related caregiving follow very different biological and social timelines, and this creates a fundamental tension between two different clocks, which you can see illustrated in the diagram on this slide, the institutional career clock versus the biological and social life course. At the same time, there's an important research gap. Early career researchers, especially those without permanent positions, often remain institutionally invisible. So our aim was to examine how academic precarity and motherhood intersect for early career women in Greece. The theoretical background of our study is related to, first, academic precarity, which refers to unstable employment and limit conditions and limited institutional integration. Second, the parenthood gender gap, which highlights how motherhood disproportionately affects women's careers and academic careers specifically. Third, neoliberal academic norms that emphasize competition, individual responsibility, and narrow definitions of excellence. And fourth, the life course perspective, which helps us understand how timing and life events shape career trajectories. Based on this framework, three main research questions arise. First, how do women experience the intersection of biological and institutional temporal demands? Second, are these experiences similar across different fields? And third, how does the gap between policies and practice manifest in everyday life? So we contribute as we connect lived experience with structural analysis, and we try to make visible this underexplored early career gray zone, as we call it, gray zone. For the purposes of our study, we use the collaborative autoethnography approach. This means that the two authors, both early career researchers, systematically analyzed their own lived experiences. We generated data through 3 structural dialogical sessions, each lasting between 1.5 and 3 hours, which were recorded and transcribed, and subsequently we conducted a thematic analysis focusing on narratives, critical incidents, and underlying patterns. If you look at the image on this slide, it captures exactly the kind of everyday tensions we are analyzing, that is, how institutional expectations and motherhood-related caregiving responsibilities intersect in practice. Regarding our findings, our main argument is that the early career phase is where career pressures and life course pressures overlap most intensely. Based on that, we identify 3 main findings. First, the gap between policies and practice. Although gender equality policies exist, they often fail to reach early career researchers without permanent contracts. Second, there is a structural mismatch. academic systems assume uninterrupted productivity and full availability, which conflicts with the realities of motherhood and caregiving. Third, the individual cost to maintain an academic career often relies on personal overextension, working through exhaustion, and managing competing demands individually. Based on these findings, we propose greater flexibility in research timelines and evaluation criteria, institutional recognition of parental status across all employment types, and targeted support for permanent researchers, and the broader consideration of rigid linear academic career structures. To conclude, this is an exploratory study, and future work could include comparative and cross-institutional research. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next talk is predicting users' attention breakpoints during mobile text entry, revisiting prior work, and will be presented by Iulia Simu. I think this is the last talk with physical presence, and we have a last one that is from a remote presenter.
Thank you. So, hello, my name is Iulia Simu, and I'm a PhD student at the Computer Engineering and Informatics Department of the University of Patras. I'm here to present a summary of a previously published work in Mobile HI 2023 that was done by my supervisor, Professor Komninos, and myself. So, during text entry, users frequently interrupt the typing process and shift their gaze from the keyboard area to the text entry area to check for errors. However, many of these checks are unnecessary if no errors have occurred. So, however, the interruption introduces additional cognitive load to the user. So the idea behind our work was to examine whether it is possible to predict when users are about to check for errors. If that is feasible, it would enable delivering feedback at opportune times in order to reduce the unnecessary attention shifts. So we used openly available gaze and touch data that were collected by 30 participants performing transcription tasks, and two input modalities were used, one finger typing and two thumbs typing. Our approach divided the screen into two areas, the keyboard area and the text entry area, and used clustering to detect the gaze shifts in the data we used. Then 5 features were selected as an attempt to capture both the likelihood of errors occurring and the cognitive effort since the last check for errors has happened. Afterwards, we used the lightweight SVM classifier and trained it, and 2 evaluation strategies were followed. Under both evaluation strategies, the model produced encouraging results. The model was able to distinct reliably between gaze states and demonstrated better performance under the two thumbs typing input modality. And interestingly, the model achieved good performance even for unseen users, as we can see under the leave one person out strategy. To conclude, we found that attention breakpoints can be approximated with encouraging results using a lightweight model and gaze and touch data. This may enable better timed and less disruptive feedback during typing, potentially improving overall typing efficiency. However, there are several limitations that must be acknowledged, as the dataset that was used was relatively small, and the necessary gaze tracking functionality might not be available in everyday devices. Moreover, the computational costs of real-time feature extraction and inference might be high, so future work could explore the use of alternative models and features that are based only on touch behavior, and more importantly, to test these models in real-world scenarios where typing is influenced by other external factors like movement, multitasking. And of course, the battery life of the device used is crucial to the overall system usability. Thank you very much.
So the next and final talk of this session is quantifying the efficacy of foundational transfer learning in digital forensics, a comparative analysis of parameter isolated adaptation versus traditional architectures. The first author is Ruha Tanvier from Air University in Malta, and the presentation is sent to us by slides, so we will show it.
Okay, so unfortunately this presenter was not able to ultimately travel to Patras to present her work, but she did send us the video, so we'll take this back. How to make this full screen?
I am Muhatim. I am an undergrad student from Air University Multan studying computer science, and the paper I am going to walk you through today is quantifying the efficacy of foundational transfer learning in digital forensics, a comparative analysis of parameter isolated adaptation versus traditional architectures. The main focus of the study, the whole project and research, was a step towards protecting women from the synthetic media abuse. So, in modern world, whenever we hear about like the deep fakes, we think of it as a viral celebrity video, a political misinformation, but the data tells a much darker story. The industry audits keep finding the same thing. The overwhelming majority of the deepfake videos circulating online, they aren't political, they are non-consensual sexual content. And the people in those videos, they are mostly, unfortunately, women. We are talking about the journalists, activists, ordinary people, the known figures, having their face stitched into a content they never consented to. So when I started this project, it wasn't really thinking of it as a forensic problem. I was thinking of it as a safety problem. If we want a detection that actually helps the people being harmed, we need a detection that works on real, messy, in the wild content, not just on a clean benchmark. That's where the field has a real weakness. Most deepfake detectors, they are trained from the scratch on the dataset. They get amazing accuracy on the test plates they are trained on, sometimes like 97%, 98%, and then you change the codec or the camera or the manipulation method, and the accuracy it collapses. So what's actually happening is they are not learning what make the face. They are learning the noise signature, one specific data set, and the compression artifact, the lightning style. So the moment the survivor uploads a re-encoded clip from her phone, the detector that scores like a 89% in the lab, it basically now just guessing. So here we took a different route. Instead of training a detector from zero, we started with Clip, the vision model from the OpenAI that's already been trained on hundreds of millions of image text pairs from the internet. Clip has seen like almost everything. It already has a strong general sense of what a real face look like, what a real lightning look like, what real texture basically look like. So now here the a question became that how do we adapt that general knowledge into a forensic detector without destroying it? So that's what most people get wrong. They take a powerful pre-trained model, they fine-tune the whole thing on the specific data set, and then the model basically it simply forgets everything it knew before and just memorize the new data set. That's we call it main fold collapse. A broader visual prior collapses into the noise of one corpus. Our solution is parameter efficient fine tuning. We freeze most of the clip's transformer blocks and we only unfreeze the last 6 layers. That's why what happened is that the early layers they keep their journal visual knowledge totally intact, and only the last layers adapt to the forensic cues, the boundary inconsistencies, the weird texture, the lightening that doesn't add up. So the result basically they back the design choice by us directly or partial unfreeze method for the model, it reaches an AUC of 94.10% and FN score of 91.63% on Face Forensic Plus Plus C23 dataset. But here's the part that I find basically most interesting. As an ablation, we tried unfreezing the whole backbone and fully fine-tuned it, the standard approach. The training loss it got better. The validation AUC got worse, from 94.10 down to 93.23. That's the classic signature of overfitting. And it's the empirical proof that the main fold collapse idea is real and less optimization in this case is generally more. So the last piece is of the deployment. Most organizations supporting deepfake survivors they do not have GPU, so we made a API, a CPU only omics model that run on laptops. Let me show you a little demo too. So here simply we uploaded a deepfake that most of the people think is real. The model not just detect it correctly and not just give a percentage of probability, it also defines and give a explanation, a forensic explanation, so that we can understand it more betterly. Thank you so much for the time and for listening to me. Good help.
I would like to thank again all presenters, and we conclude this morning session. There is a break, and I hope to see you all later in the afternoon. Now we have
some more.
We have some more.
Before the break.
Okay.
Before you escape,
Andrea.
lock the doors, please. Don't
Andrea,
please.
Dimitris made a very good question. How do we know that person is real?
It was a nice event, so if she was a good
Well, she did send a lot of emails and also submitted all of her work in time and using the forms that we provided. So if she was not real, then I have to say congratulations to the programmer. But that's definitely, I don't think that's the case. So before we leave, we have a few announcements. Effectively, we would like to tell you a little bit more about GEC and where it's going to take place next year. But before that, I would like to invite Maria Rusu to the stage because we would like to present the ACM-W Greek Chapter Distinguished Service Award. This is an award established from this year. I think this is the first one, right?
This is the second year.
Oh, the second year, okay. So Maria, please take a seat.
Yes, so as we presented yesterday, the Gender Equality in Computing Summit is the flagship event of the ACM-W Professional Chapter in Greece, which was established in 2018, has more than 250 members. It's free to become a member. I'll have a slide a little later for you to see again the link to our website, and please do join us. So you can be informed about the events that we hold, aside from the GEC, the other events as well. And this, an initiative that we took last year, it was the first year, is to give a distinguished service award to members of our community who have shown to provide this kind of service of equality gender equality in the computing field. Last year, the recipient of the award was Iula Faturu, Panayota Faturu. She was our, coming from the same institution as Dimitris.
We graduated the same year.
Oh, you graduated the same year.
With I think like 0.1
Great.
difference in our
Fantastic, fantastic. So you know her well then. Panayota Faturu was the chair of the ACM-W professional chapter in Greece for many years, from its establishment in 2018 to 2024, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember when we had our elections, and she is now a member of our steering committee and, of course, continues to be so. For this second year, the Distinguished Service Award was given to Professor Athina Vakali from the university, the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. Professor Vakali has been a very active proponent of women in the field of computing. She was the general chair of GEC 2022. She has been a keynote speaker in Women Courage in Trondheim, Norway in 2024, if I'm not mistaken. And the chapter that they have there at the University, the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, has been very active in promoting women and all genders in the computing field. Unfortunately, she's on educational leave and she wasn't able to be here, but she was kind enough to send us a video message, which I will play now. I just click right.
Greetings to the Gender Equality in Computing 2026 audience. I'm really glad and honored to receive such an award. It's really a big honor for me, since I have organized 4 years ago the same conference, and I really enjoyed the whole experience. I think it's a time of being in a conference, but also celebrating the part that we are together and we have the chance to exchange all of our research, but also all of our other ideas of how to change the women and the other genders' participation in computing. Gender equality in computing is still a big problem, at least in Greece. We are far from being at the equal representation sides, and we all must contribute in how to change that. To do so, I have a personal motto, I would say, or an acronym. I call it the IEE acronym for gender equality. The I stands for inspire, the first E stands for courage, and the last E stands for empower. By inspire, I mean that all of us must really give the floor to all the generations, even starting from generation Alpha, Z, and go on. And all of the generations must share their experiences, their best practices on how we will change this gender equality issue that we all experience in academia, at least for women participation, especially in computing. By encouraging, I actually mean that we should share also our failures, our problems, the pain, let's say, that we suffered to achieve our role and to deserve the role that we got. So all of us can follow the pathway that it might be exemplary and it might encourage younger generations to move on. And the last E, empowerment, has to do with the roles that all of us must take. Being a mentor, being a teacher, an employee, or an employer, we all must do our best to showcase that we want equal representation, not because we are female or other gender, but because we really deserve it and we really work very hard. I wish all the best for the conference this year. I saw the program, it's an exciting one. I'm really glad it gets better and better every year. And of course, let's say that we will meet again very soon. And I wish all the best. And again, I'm really grateful and honored to receive such an award. All the best for the conference.
this IEE as a motto ourselves, and it confirms also that this award is very well deserved. With this, I'd like to also present, although I don't have it in print form, a service award to Andreas Komninos for being the chair of this conference, and we thank him a deep, deep felt thanks to Andreas and his team for this event, which I think so far, it's almost nearing its end, but so far it has been a great success. So thank you, Andreas. And now, although we're not at the end of the conference, we will announce, as is customary, the next event next year, and where it will be. Drum roll. We don't have the sound effect here, but the GEC 2027 will be held in Athens at the University of Athens. I will have the honor of hosting it along with my colleagues from different departments. I come from the Department of Informatics and Telecommunications. My colleague Aristotelis Tibas comes from the Department of History, of Philosophy, of Science and Philosophy. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. And Professor Petros Roussos, not related to me, comes from the Department of Psychology. So together, we will be hosting this edition, the 9th edition of the Gender Equality and Computing Conference. The dates are May 12 to 14 in 2027 in Athens. At the main university building, it has 2 different conference rooms. So we will select one of the 2, left or right. We don't know which one yet, but we will also be holding events in 2 fantastic buildings that are relatively nearby. The Kostis Palamas building on the left side is a beautiful building where we can have some social events there. And the Museum of History of the University of Athens is in Plaka, a wonderful neighborhood, the old town of Athens, a wonderful museum, and we'll host a social event there. So stay tuned. Yes, one more thing. The conference next year will be held in conjunction with the Meta 2 project. I have some swag later to give you, bookmarks. The Meta 2 project is a European funded, Horizon Europe funded project that researches gender harassment in social virtual reality environments in the metaverse. It will be ending next year, next June of 2027. So its final conference with all the results of the research from this project will be presented the first day of the Gender Equality and Computing Summit, or ACM celebration. So this will be, I think, will make the event even richer. So, inspired by Dimitris' talk, and while he was talking this morning, I don't use AI for such creativity tasks. It doesn't come to my mind, not because I'm biased, I guess, but inspired during your talk, Dimitris,
So you are not paying attention to me.
I was very much paying attention, but the barrage of images, in some way, we have the YouTube recording, so I'll go back and really study your talk in depth. But I was paying attention, but I was very inspired, so that's why I used ChatGPT. I don't have a paid version, just the free version, so I couldn't do much because at some point I reached the limit, but I put this prompt in: create a logo for the Gender Equality for Computing ACM celebration. It will be held in Athens in 2027. And it came up with this. Of course, I told it that this is really tacky. I don't like the Parthenon at all. It was my fault. I put the word Athens in there, so it would be expected. But I just can't stand at conference images where they have, you know, the location in the back. That's so 1990s. So I said this, and it comes back with this. And you can see it distorted also.
It's still the Parthenon somewhere.
Yeah, the Parthenon was removed. Everything else, yeah, the Colosseum somehow is made there. I said something minimal, not distorted, not binary, fewer colors, and it comes up with this. And I give up and I say, never mind, I'll ask a human designer. Yes, this is slop. See, I was listening to you, and I am biased towards AI. I'm sorry for that. So no logo yet, but stay tuned. Visit our website. You'll see how the preparation for the GEC 2027 progresses. ACM-W-gr.acm.org. Please do also send a request to become a member. And don't forget that this event, as all of the previous events, is recorded, live streamed and recorded on our YouTube channel, so you can revisit it when you go back. With this, thank you very much. Thank you all for being here, and we look forward to the rest of the event.
Okay, we can break for lunch now. Go enjoy yourself.